Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
What do you say?
Guys, welcome to Construct Your Life. See, we don't even got to do the small talk because we have the man, the myth, the legend, Dan. I'm not even going to say your last name because I'm going to screw it up. So I'm just going to leave it like that. Dan, triple net, Lease King in the house.
What's up, man? I love the hair.
Dude, you and Zach are always on my hair. I love it. Dude, it needs a haircut. I'm going to a wedding this weekend, so we're gonna get it straightened out. Man, I'm so happy. You know what's funny is I don't think I've had anybody on the podcast that does what you do. So really? This is great. So what I like to do, let my guests kind of tell their story, and we'll kind of go from there, and then we'll talk about what you do. And you're a veteran. You've done like 1 million podcasts, so this is nothing.
There you go. All right, sounds good. So where do you want to start?
What have you been doing the last couple of years in real estate, and how did you get started?
Ooh, okay. So got started back in 2005. I started a construction company with my good friends, and it was a barrier-free home modification company. I did all the sales and marketing, and that was really where I had my aha moment, because I was out with our project manager. And we were out looking at a home that was just this old, outdated, functionally obsolete home. And he sat there with this graph paper, and I watched him as he took this property and kind of sketched it out and turned it from something that didn't work into something that did. And that moment was like forever emblazoned in my psyche. And it really got me thinking, got me started. And when it came up time for me to buy my first home, I chose to buy a house that was bank owned, that was in dire need of some love, and took that property and turned it into something beautiful. And, my friends joked with me. They said, Dan, what are you going to do when you finish renovating your house? And I just kind of said, half joking, that I would buy another one. And that's exactly what I did. I bought another one and another one and another one. And I just, took that same motif of taking something that's, either functionally obsolete or in need of some love, and, giving it what it needs and turning it into something beautiful. And that just kind of set me on my way. From there, I ran a sales department for a title insurance agency so that I could learn more about title, which I thought was a very elusive aspect of real estate in general. And I continued all the while, flipping houses. I spent some time working at Amazon in their business development side of the company. And eventually I just jumped off on my own and started, flipping homes in and around the city of Detroit, and eventually landed in the commercial real estate world as a triple net broker. And that's where I've been ever since.
Why do you think people, I'll go back to the first part. Why do you think people get so scared about like fixing up a property, right? Like it's pretty common. Like, here's a property that is low in value, and if I give it value, it's going to make me more money. But yet so many people are scared, like it's just walls and 2x4s.
Yeah, I mean, from your perspective, it is, right. But I think that from other people's perspective, it's unknown, right? There's a lot that can go wrong. And there's a lot of, aspects of the project. I mean, you and I both know that things can, and they will, and they do go wrong. And I think that people are scared. I mean, if you look at it, if you take that, if you zoom back and look at it from an investor perspective, yeah, if you've got something that, costs X and you can put Y into it, and then, the sum of those two is less than what the property is worth. Yeah, of course, it makes investment sense. I just think that a lot of people are turned off by the fact that there's a lot of unknowns.
No, for sure. And what eventually got your path to commercial real estate? What kind of beaconed you there?
Yeah, good question. So, I was actually the owners of a brokerage reached out to me, and they were looking for individuals with sales background to, become commercial real estate broker. And at the time, I was flipping a lot of houses, and I would joke with people and tell them that when they asked me what I did for a living, I would tell them adult daycare, and I was just constantly babysitting contractors and dealing with properties getting broken into, furnaces getting stolen, air conditioning is getting stolen, cabinets getting stolen, And the idea of being a broker where, number one, I didn't have to invest my own money, or at least very little in terms of, just my marketing expenses. I didn't have to raise money, and I didn't have to have my boots on the ground, right? I could work from pretty much wherever I wanted to. I don't meet my clients. I don't see my buildings, and I don't go to closings. Everything that I do is remote. So for me, that transition of, going from the guy that's literally running around managing crews all over east and west side of Detroit to someone who's sitting wherever he wants to, underwriting deals and doing it, from the comfort of my own home, or, if we're on vacation or whatever, to me, it just became a lot more exciting. And then also the upside potential. I mean, as a commercial real estate broker, our fees are pretty standard and they're not that far away from residential fees, but, we're doing deals that could be 20, 30, 50, 100 times larger than your average residential real estate transaction. So for me, all those variables together made it a no-brainer. And I love it. I think it's great, which is why I'm helping other people to get into the commercial real estate brokerage industry as well.
So I know what residential agents do. They're running around town. They're showing people houses. How can you not meet your clients? How can you work from anywhere? And explain to me this, because commercial brokers, I don't know who they are. They're hidden ninjas, in the community. I think you only hang out with each other.
Right.
So tell me how that whole game works.
Yeah, good question. So here, look at it from this perspective. If somebody's selling a home, right, you need to know a lot about it. You need to know what color of the walls, what is the condition of the floor, when was it built, what does it look and feel like, what's the layout? There's so much variance, right? With a net lease property, I'm essentially dealing with a bond, okay, with a guaranteed rent that's wrapped up in sticks and bricks. So my clients don't care what the interior of the Wendy's looks like. They don't care about the condition of the property because the tenant is responsible for all of the repairs, the maintenance, the taxes, the insurance, the common area maintenance, the parking lot, the roof, the structure, et cetera. So really, it's almost like you look at me as a bond trader. I'm trading, a lease that has a specific return on it with specific, clauses and specific guarantees. It just happens to be that lease takes hold inside of a property, but the actual property itself is almost inconsequential. So, you can look at it from that perspective. Number one. Number two, I mean, as a broker, what, my job is to source property and then source buyers for that property. And then my job is to ensure that I market that property to the best of my abilities, get as many offers as possible. And again, these buyers are from all over the country. They may not have ever seen the property. And when it comes time to actually do the closing, all I need to do is make sure that all the documents, get pushed back and forth to the proper people. So, really that makes my position one of, just utter remoteness in its nature.
So for anybody that doesn't fully understand that, so I want to educate them. What's the easiest way to explain a triple net lease?
Okay, great. So the triple net lease, let's just look at the nomenclature, look at the word itself. So the rent is net to the investor. So let's contrast that with multifamily. So multifamily, or even a single family residential property. Let's just keep it simple. So let's say you've got a single family residential property and the rent is $1,000 a month. Well, that $1,000 a month is not what the investor nets. That's a gross rent. There's going to be other expenses, right? There's going to be, for example, property taxes. There's going to be insurance. Maybe there's going to be management. Maybe there's going to be capital expenditures or repairs, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a gross rent. And the investor's net collected rent is going to be, the outcome of taking that gross number and then subtracting all the expenses. Well, with a triple net property, the rent is actually net to the investor. So if Wendy's is paying $10,000 a month, for example, that fee includes the fact that the tenant pays for all the taxes, the tenant pays for the insurance on the building, the tenant pays to maintain and repair anything, whether it's, the fixtures inside of the restaurant, the roof, the structure, the parking lot, et cetera. So that $10,000 a month is net to the investor. There's absolutely no expenses whatsoever. Now, in addition, typically, most of these properties have a guarantee from a very large national corporation. So the stability and the soundness and the low risk is inherent with these assets in ways that it's not the case in other types of real estate investment.
And what's the typical terms length on a triple net lease?
In terms of the duration of lease, the
duration of lease, yeah.
So typically these leases, when they're cast initially, are 20-year leases. Sometimes they're 15-year leases. And then depending on when they're sold in their cycle, they could have, a few years burned off. I've got a deal that I'm going to be bringing to market that has a year left on the lease. I've got a deal right now that's got, is a brand new 20-year lease. But often what happens as we get closer to the end of the lease is that the tenant and the landlord can renegotiate. The vast majority of these leases have built-in rental escalations, which is really nice. So those rental escalations could be 1% a year, they could be 2% a year, they could be 3% a year. And as we get further along in the term, many times the investor, the owner, and the tenant will agree, hey, I know you only have another 2 years left on the lease, and right now your rent is at $300,000 a year. Well, if I knock that down to, let's say, $275 a year, can we do a new 15 or 20-year lease? And what's interesting there, that's actually called, Austin, a blend and extend. I'll give you a real life example of a deal I'm working with right now. This was a Walgreens deal. Walgreens is a pretty big, well-known tenant. And when I first got the deal, it had 14 months left on the lease. And the owner was collecting $290,000 of annual income. Very short-term lease. So at that point, the property would approximately trade at, let's say, a 9 cap. Okay. So $290,000 at a 9 cap is $3.22 million. Okay. Now, if we take that same property and they actually got an extension from Walgreens, they dropped the rent down to $225,000. So it's significantly less rent. However, they got a brand new 10-year lease. Now you'd think, oh, why would they do that? That property was worth more cash flowing at $290,000 a year than it is now at $225,000. Well, the reason is once we get a brand new 10-year lease, that property is going to go all the way from a 9 cap to approximately, let's say, a 5.85 cap. Okay. So now watch this. Now that property is worth $3.846 million. So they just put in an extra $600,000 of equity in that deal merely by lowering the rent, which is counterintuitive, and extending the lease in what we call a blend and extend.
Well, what's interesting, and I only know this because about a year and a half ago, a big private equity developer had 4 townhomes. He asked me to price out doing Airbnb. And I was like, look, I feel like I can make you like, $2,000 over your mortgage. And he was like, okay, great. I don't care. And I was like, what? And I was like, I don't understand. He goes, you got to understand, we're doing deals all over the country. I need a 2 to 3 year lease on the property to let my bank know that I've stabilized this asset. And he said to me, and it like sat with me, not every dollar is the same.
It's true. Not every dollar is the same. And at the end of the day, the stability and the guarantee, because keep in mind that 10-year lease, that means that Walgreens is locked into 10 years in that property. So barring some type of major event like a bankruptcy, they have to pay, even if they stop renting, even if they leave. When there's 14 months left on the lease, you have no assurance that at the end of that 14 years, they're not going to leave. And now you've got a vacant 17,000 square foot building. So it's like anything in investing, risk versus reward. What's counterintuitive for a lot of people is that I just showed you a deal where the net operating income went down by $65,000, yet the price on the deal went up by $600,000. So you can trade sometimes that net operating income for, equity and value.
Well, what people don't understand is the number one disruptors. Well, commercial definitely doesn't like this, but the number one disruptor is moving tenants in and out. And that's why you're seeing, right? I'm in an apartment right now where they're offering 1, 3, 7 month, 8 month, 9 month leases. And I asked my buddy who's in apartments, I was like, why? He's like, because they can't have everybody move out on the same month. They have to stagger it, or their dollars cash flow would be way off.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I'm curious, just from a pure investor standpoint, anybody that's young and listening to this, is there a market where, let's say, a regular smaller investor that's looking to get up could get in the small triple net lease game? Is that even a thing, or is it mainly corporations and bigger funds?
Yeah. So, I mean, in my world, from my perspective, my smaller clients are the ones that have 2 or 3 of these buildings. And, you're talking, $4, $5, $6 million of assets right there. So can someone get into that? That might be a little more challenging, but let's say, I've got clients that are getting into their first fast food restaurant. I just sold one a couple of weeks ago, sold it for $1.72 million. So keep in mind, you can leverage, right? So $1.72 million, typically you probably will need about a 30% down payment, right? So if you've got a $1.72 million purchase price, that's going to be about $516,000 down. So yeah, that there's a barrier to entry there for sure. However, what a lot of people do is a syndication, okay, which I'm sure you're familiar with. So what'll happen is, and I've got clients that do this all the time, they'll parcel up just like they do. I've got the same clients that I have that do this for multifamily and single family residential. They do it for net lease. So they'll parcel up, 20, 30, 50, $100,000 pieces, from 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 people. And then they'll go in and leverage that. And, granted, in a syndication like that, if you're putting up 50 or 100 grand, you don't own that property, right? You have a certain, stake in it, but it's not yours, so to speak. However, you can leverage the fact that you're investing with a smaller amount of money and still having, participating in the ownership of a net leased asset. So that's one way that people do it. Typically there's not a lot of, I don't move a lot of inventory, under five, even my cheapest listing I've sold was about $500,000. And that's rare. Typically, we don't sell assets under, about $1 million. Our average as a brokerage, we sold about $800 million worth of net leased assets last year. And our average transaction is around $4 million.
Okay. I love that. And I'm not going to bag on them, but what is so attractive, right? Because we definitely think that, I think there was a study out the other day that 40%, and I hate to get the number wrong, but 40% of realtors in the Austin area haven't even sold a house this year. And everybody's saying that the market's so hot, right?
Yeah.
So that being said, the market might be hot, but it might be a certain number of agents. So what makes being a commercial broker so attractive for somebody that's maybe looking for a different, a pivot in their career?
Yeah. I mean, well, we can run the numbers. Let's say that you've got, I don't know, let's just use some general numbers here, but let's say that you're a residential agent and your average home is 300 grand. Let's just, I don't know, it depends on your market, $300,000, an average fee is 6%. Typically, as a residential broker, you're not going to double end both sides. You're just going to represent the seller or just represent the buyer. So a 6% fee becomes a 3% fee. That's $9,000. Now you're going to have to split that somehow with your brokerage. I'm not going to get into how you're splitting it because every brokerage is different. But just for simplicity's sake, let's say that you take home 75% of that. Okay. So your 9,000 becomes $6,750. Okay. So $6,750 for one transaction. So in order to eat and in order to build a career for yourself, you got to sell a lot of those. You know what I mean? If you want to, let's say that you want to make 100 grand, you've got to sell, I don't know, whatever that is, 15, 20 of those properties every single year. Now let's look at net lease. Like I've got a listing right now, 11.65 million. So 11.65. All right. Now our fees are smaller, right? So instead of 6% on a deal like this, you might have a 3% fee. But now here's what's really cool is that a 3% fee is $349,500. And what's very common in commercial real estate brokerage is to double end the deal. So a listing agent in many cases will also represent the buyer. They'll keep the entire fee. So now let's just use the same numbers. Let's say you're taking home 75% of your fee. Okay. So now $262,125. So similar amount of work, right? You can sell a home and make $6,700, or you can sell a commercial property and make $250,000. So from my perspective, if you're going to be a broker, and you're going to be working and doing the same thing, as long as you have the proper training, why wouldn't you want to look into commercial where the fees percentage wise are very similar? However, it's much more likely you're going to double in the deal and the dollar amounts are way bigger. Now, another factor, Austin, is that how many times does a person buy or sell a home and then say, oh, by the way, I've got 10 or 15 other homes for you to list. It doesn't happen, right? In commercial, typically the owners of, like, for example, that hospital, that particular client owns 10 of those properties. So the opportunity for repeat business is just a lot greater. And then the other variable I want to say is that, like, look what I described. I'm not, showing homes late at night. I'm not running around. I'm not driving my whole trade area looking for properties. I'm not hosting open houses or going to closings. So the flexibility and freedom I think is also a lot greater in the commercial real estate space.
What's interesting about that, and there's so many things I love about that, but the commercial thing, a guy told me earlier today, like his first property that he raised money on was 460 units. And he's like, in the moment, he was like, damn, like, how am I going to do this? And he goes, it was really easy. Like, what I mean by that is like that $11 million deal might sound like a lot, but there's a lot. Thing. There's 100%. And there's a lot more people that can handle something like that than you would think if you change your mindset.
100%. And it's exactly, I mean, there's a great book. I'm in triple net, but in multifamily, there's a really great book called Multifamily Millions. Mm-hmm. And he talks about that over and over again. Is like the only difference between a 20 unit and a 200 or a 400 unit is the number of zeros. That's really it. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's really important. And that's why particularly I like to chase after the bigger deals, because same amount of work to get that $500,000 listing across the finish line as it is to get the $11.5 million listing across the finish line.
And what they don't understand is in a deal like that, it's bigger. There's a lot more margin in the deal too. So you're not feeling it, right? Like, and that's why like we're dealing with the deal right now. Like the swings on a single family flip with lots, like those $20,000-$30,000 swings that's a big thing to eat, right? If stuff goes the wrong way, right? And I think when I worked private equity, they used to try to get me to go out and do like $100,000 loans. And I was like, no chance. Not exactly. Because it's the same amount of work to do that as it is to do a $15 million deal. So you might as well do the $15 million deal and just be happy with that.
Exactly.
I do want to talk about your social media prowess on LinkedIn and kind of your kind of tactic that you use to network and kind of put yourself out there, which it seems to be like you're everywhere on that platform. Kind of just tell us your strategies and why you're so heavy on that one.
Yeah. So my strategy is just to, every day post valuable content so that people consume my content and view me as a thought leader in that space. And that way, when they think triple net and they think brokerage, they think about me. That's really the goal. I have clients that have reached out and said, "Hey, I've been watching, and I have a show that you've been on, and I've got new clients I'm working with now that have reached out and said, "Hey, Dan, I've been watching your show, and I've got a portfolio of properties I want you to list." So for me, the traditional brokerage model in our world is one-to-one model. It's pick up the phone and call one investor, and then repeat that 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 times a month until you get a listing. So I decided that that's a great thing. I'm not going to discount it. I think it's very important. But at the same time, through social media, I can create a one-to-many interaction. So I can put myself out there and make sure that people view me as a thought leader. And when they're considering selling their property, they're going to reach out. I heard it said very, very succinctly, and I think it's great. And I want to share it with you, is that, a lot of times people say it's not what you know, it's who you know, right? But this individual took it a step further, and I really believe that. Today, it's not necessarily who you know, it's who knows you. And through social media, we're able to have a platform where tens or hundreds of thousands of people in a few minutes can get acquainted with you as an individual. I think there's a tremendous value to that. So for me, in order to be able to leverage my time, I chose to invest in social media and invest in my show so that I could get my voice out to many people at one time. And then at the same time, be associated as the person that they want to speak with when it's time for them to list their property. And I have witnessed that it works. People reach out because they find value.
Yeah. And then more importantly, by you putting value out there, you're going to find the people that like you and vice versa. And but more importantly, and what I think is interesting is because you have a podcast, you have a platform to offer value to somebody else, which puts you in a position to maybe have a conversation with somebody that like you wouldn't meet otherwise.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. And it builds my network. That way, if my clients need something, like I'll give you a great example. I've got a Wendy's deal I'm working on right now off market, and the seller lives in California. And he said to me, look, I want you to sell this property. Excuse me, but I need to trade into something in Southern California at a specific cap rate at a specific price. Can you help me find something? And without social media, my answer would have been, no, I can't, because that's just not my bailiwick. That's not my wheelhouse. But immediately I reached out to somebody I've never met before. I interact with him on an almost daily basis on LinkedIn. I respect him, had him on my show. We know each other. And, within 6 hours, I had 5 deals in my inbox that worked perfectly for this client. So I think that the thing that people need to realize is that as someone who's in the business of serving your client, you're only as good as your network, right? So my abilities are limited as a single human being. But when I have a valuable network like that, I'm able to leverage my network. And now my network becomes my client's resources.
I couldn't agree more. Like, look, yes, people are paying, they're paying me to be a coach, but they're also paying to be in my net. They're paying to use my network. Yeah. They're paying to use people who I know. Oh, well, like I want to learn wholesale. Well, that's not my thing, but guess what? I know the best 3 wholesalers in the country. Boom. Here you go. Right. Here's a phone call. And like I send one text, and really for them, that would have took them, probably a year to meet them, and I can make it happen like that. So,
exactly. That's right.
Yeah.
There you go.
So if people want to find the show and people want to find the course and everything that you and Zach have going on, tell us a little bit about the course before we get out of here too.
Yeah. So you can go to straight up Google Dan on Top. That's the name of the show, and it'll come up right away. It's also on Roku. So if you search for the station name NRM Streamcast on Roku, you can find it there. You can find it on Apple TV, on Amazon. You can find it on Spotify, all the typical podcast channels. And then, follow me on social media on LinkedIn, Dan Lewkowicz. You'll see every 3 times a week, I post new episodes of the show. I think we're up to episode number 72 right now. So, that's probably the best way is on LinkedIn, just to follow me. And then we have our own, group for the show as well. And then as you alluded to, Zach and I, a mutual friend, we've created this CRE Pro course that's going to be launching here any day. It's our baby. It's something we've put, our blood, sweat, and tears and countless hours into. And, really the reason that we created it is exactly what I said before. There was a demand. People were reaching out. They wanted to know, hey, how do I become a commercial real estate broker? And obviously, as you know, and as is evidenced by the last few minutes here, like I'm very passionate about being a commercial real estate broker, and I want to help other people do it as well. So because people reached out and wanted to know what they could do to become a top commercial real estate broker, we decided to put together the resource for them to do that. And that's the CRE Pro course.
I love that. And then next week, we're going to have Zach. Everybody's going to be talking about each other. It's going to be fun. We're going to talk about the course. I'm actually going to release this interview that we just did right now. I'm going to release it on LinkedIn right now. As soon as we get done. So yeah, we're not going to wait for the podcast to go in. We're just going to release it right now because people need to know about the course. Guys, check this guy out. He's crushing it. He'd be happy to answer any questions about triple let lease. And here's the more important thing. Just because everybody says you have to be a residential broker doesn't mean you have to. You can go learn from this guy like this, and you can create, like he said, in a short amount of time, some real wealth by becoming an asset for your clients. So if you like this episode, make sure you send it out to your friends, rate us and review us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.